Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's It's in the Ballot show here. We're at the Porirua College for the Porirua City Council mayoral debate, and we've got these fantastic candidates here who are standing for office. But with every election, there's one thing stepping in the way, and that's your vote. Good evening and welcome to tonight's show of It's in the Ballot here at the Porirua College. I think I said that before, but we can sit there and say it again. And I mean, the great part about being here is my grandma used to be the associate principal, being second in charge from this college from 1980 to 1990. So she's definitely sit there and say, we've got to sit there and support her old workplace where she did a great journey of 16 years. Now, we've got two candidates here. We've got one who's trying to break the land speed record to get here on time. That will be partly why we had a late start. And we do have apologies from incumbent Mayor Anita Baker, unless she magically turns up, which if she magically turns up, she's more than welcome to sit there and put her feet to the It's in the Ballot fire. But before we get to our fantastic candidates, let's get to our electorate video.
Citywide Ward, Hutt City Council. The citywide ward of the Hutt City Council mayoral race, Porirua City Council. The Porirua City Council starts just north of the suburb of Tawa and stretches right up in the north to the summit of Paikakiri Hill Road and includes Porirua Bay, and towards the east to the summit of Haywards Hill Road, and also includes Judgeford, Patanui and Moonshine Hill Road. What is unique about Porirua, you might ask? Well, it's home to the New Zealand Royal Police College, New Zealand's only police college. It is also home to one of New Zealand's biggest Pacifica communities, home of two polytechnic universities, the Whitireia campus and also Te Wānanga Aotearoa. Now, let's get to the important part, the voting system. Porirua City Council uses the voting system single transferable vote. So when it comes to voting, please rank your candidates in the number of order of preference you prefer them to be elected in, starting with number 1, number 2, and so on up to 4, since 4 candidates are standing. You can rank as many candidates as you want, or as few as you want.
If we turn the mute key off. Okay, thank you for the electorate video. Hopefully you get an idea where the electoral boundaries are for Porirua City Council. And yes, it's quite scary. It's all the way from the top of Paikakiri Hill Road right up to the top of the Haywards and all the way around, but doesn't include Tawa. And I believe our land speed record candidate has turned up here. So yeah, around. Yep. So let's sit there and first start off with Nicole with your opening statements on why you should become the next mayor of Porirua.
So my name is Nicole Foss. I've been an environmental consultant. I've been a research fellow at Oxford at the Institute for Energy Studies. I ran the biogas industry in Canada when I was living there. My background is in science and law. I have 2 degrees in each. And since I came to New Zealand, I've been on the board of the Living Economies Educational Trust. So I've been involved with a lot of things internationally. I've also lectured for about 15 years in hundreds of cities all over the world in international finance and energy. So those are my fields in particular. So my priorities for Porirua would be refreshing local democracy, particularly because that is on the ballot this time. Through Three Waters, this would actually gut local democracy, which is why I oppose it. So that, and also resilience, building resilience is critical. There are issues coming through in energy and finance, both of which are my fields, that are going to hit New Zealand quite hard, and certainly Porirua as well. So because I've been studying these issues for years, I know what sort of things are coming, and I have some idea how to deal with them. The other issue I'm interested in is unity. After 2 years of division and polarization, much of which I think was deliberate, I would like to bring people back together again and build community. Thank you.
And one question I'd like to ask for the audience at home: why have you decided to hedge your bets this election when it comes to standing? And hedging your bets is usually standing in a ward as for a councillor and for mayor. What was your reasoning for choosing that approach?
I was asked to do so.
Okay. Next up, Tapu. Your opening statement of why you should become the next mayor of Porirua.
Yes, kia ora and warm greetings, everyone. My name is Tapu Elia. I'm 38 years old and I'm a mum of 2 boys, aged 12 and 4. And I've lived in Porirua for over 25 years. And I also went to school here. And I've seen a lot of changes and lots of inaction that has been happening in Porirua. And I'd love to be the person that can address these issues. These issues keep growing, from housing to climate to cost of living, and we need a mayor that can take action now and drive change. I also believe we need a mayor that's a people's person. Any room I walk into, people are naturally drawn to me because I am a people's person, and I believe with our current mayor, people aren't drawn to her. People don't even go and see her in her clinics, and I think that's a shame because I don't know how you're going to fix solutions for the community and for people if you can't speak to people. How will you solve their problems and solve these, obviously the crisis that we're in with our housing, our water crisis? The list keeps going on, and I want to be the person to drive the action to create the effective change that we need. I pride myself in being a successful business owner, and I also run a charitable trust. So I'm already working at the grassroots of my community here in Cannons Creek, Porirua East, and I know what the needs are of my community. And I've experienced a retape from the council, and the reason why I want to run is because I want to be the person to drive the change that we need to happen here in Porirua. I also think that we need more Pacific representatives around the table, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity to be here. Thank you very much.
And one question I'd like to ask is, why have you decided to hedge your bets this local body elections by both standing as a ward councillor and a candidate and a mayoral candidate?
Yes, so the reason why I'm running this time is because COVID has really shown us that we need to take action. And right now, the administration that we're seeing right now, they are process focused, and there's not a lot of action happening. And we need someone like me with the business acumen that can see what needs to be done. We need to save money for our ratepayers, and we need to add value back to our community. And because of my business background and my legal background and my government background, I'm able to drive the action that we need to create the change and help all our communities thrive here in Porirua.
Thank you. And next up, Ura. And thank you for breaking the land speed record. And did you give Munro a bit of a run for his money on the record?
No, I just told.
It's live. Our
Well,
PA
first,
system's not
Kia ora
working
ana,
great.
malole nei, talofa lava. Assalamu alaikum, ni hao, and warm Pacifica greetings to you, Sam and Stacey. Thank you very much for all of the effort you both have made, and your team in the background there, for bringing this event to fruition. And as far as the speed event goes, I think I did pretty well. So those whakaama training sessions did me well, as well as the walking around Aotea Lagoon. Thank you, Sam.
No problem. So now your opening statement of why you should become the next mayor of Porirua.
I am from Porirua. I was raised in Porirua. I actually am residing in Porirua. I am Māori, Cook Island Māori, and Ngāti Toa affiliated, Maniopoto and Samoan. I'm a representation of the diversity that exists in our community. I'm also of Scottish heritage. I bring a diverse lens to the positions. I have a diverse range of experiences. I have taught for over 30 years. I have travelled internationally. I've worked in governance at the senior level, internationally and locally. I'm an educator. I'm also too a parent, a grandmother, and I have experiences that are aligned to much of the needs and the wants and the expectations of our families here in Porirua. I also too believe that my community who asked me to step up and to run for mayoralty and also for Council of the Oniupoto Ward did so because they believe I'm a strong leader. They believe also too I say what is evidence-based and what I think, and that I will ensure the job gets done and it gets done to the end when it's finished. I believe also too what I bring to this position is a unique lens as an educated Pacifica and Māori woman and a person who has been educated in Porirua, who knows the reality of life in Porirua and who has that strong leadership capability to say how it is and to ask for that change and to look at innovative ways in which to effect that change.
Thank you. And the question I would like to ask, but I think you might have already answered it. Why have you decided to hedge your bets this local body elections by standing for both as a ward councillor and for mayor?
I have partly answered that, but I think also too, I come from a very well-known Cook Island Māori family in Porirua, Pacifica family, the Pokoati family. And we, as we were growing up, our family built a village around Porirua from the lower part of Waihora Crescent all the way up around Warspite, going all the way up to Waihemo Street, looping around. And I was nurtured and brought up in a very rich kōpū tangata family here in Porirua. And my family, many years ago, when they recognised I had strengths and talents in leadership, asked me to step up. I wasn't interested at that time. So for me, being Māori, if I have the support of my whānau and of my people, and particularly my father, before he passed away, he told me, go for it, go for it. Don't listen to anybody. You've got what it takes. Step up, do it, be our voice for the vulnerable. And so that's been my driving force. Kia ora.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here and I'll take a walk across to the other side of the studio where we're going to start answering the box questions. See you after the break. welcome back. So with It's in the Ballot, we have 30 boxes here with sealed questions in it. 28 of them have questions in it, and within the theme that's similar to the TV show, 2 of them have what is known as called booby questions. One of the questions is called Dodge the Question. The other one is called Defer the Question to another candidate. These are get out jail free cards for the candidates here, with the principle behind them is for them not to be used. Because if you're using them, what are you trying to get yourself out of answering? When a booby question is selected, the candidate will be given the card as a as their little get out jail free card, and then they'll pick another box to get another question to keep the show going. And Ura, you are up first. What box number would you like to pick?
7, please.
Okay, question number 1 on the question sheet. And that is a great one there because I can't read it. Are you able to refresh the OBS stream? What's the question number? Thank you, Stacey. Bring me up. This is what happens when you miss the printing deadline. You can't read them off the card. Okay. What are the challenges facing the harbour and its catchment, and what are your priorities for protecting and enhancing the quality of the harbour and its catchment? Ready when you are.
Kia ora. For me, the challenges facing Te Awarua or Porirua are sewage and stormwater contamination. Our water infrastructure is outdated and it needs to actually be reviewed and changed. We need to look at what we can do quickly to stop sewage and stormwater contamination by making sure this is included in the district plan, our ecosystem in the harbour, and also seeing the impacts of sediment from contamination of pollutants, which impact our wairua as a city. So when we talk about answering this question, we're really looking at the whole water and well-being of our city. My priorities for protecting and enhancing the harbour are to work with the Greater Wellington Regional Council and government to develop an action plan to upgrade the necessary infrastructure, specifically catchment and water pipes, with an approach of quick wins for maximum benefit at decreased cost and effort. I think also aligned to this as well too is working with Ngāti Toa initial co-governance has actually started, but also ensuring that this is transparent as the issue itself involves a team effort. Kia ora.
Thank you. Next up, Tapu, what box number would you like to pick?
Let's have number 1, thank you.
Number 1. Have we managed to get OBS to work yet or not? No? Okay. Yeah, exactly. Question number 27. God, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I'm going to make sure they line up. Yes, they do line up. Okay. We need land for housing. How will you support freeing up land in the right places and without letting rich NIMBYs stop you?
So freeing up land. So I know there's already some developments happening in Plymerton Farm and Pukeroa Bay and out here in Porirua East, which is great. Unfortunately, we don't have the infrastructure to support these new builds, and we need to make sure that we are following the new RMA reform and looking after our environment while we're making these new builds. It's really important that we're looking after Papa Tuanuku and that we are protecting in Kaitiakitanga our biodiversity and all the fauna around these areas, and protecting any of the sediment from getting into our beautiful harbour and into our waterways.
Thank you. Next up, Nicole, what box number?
25.
Feels weird seeing it in a production line on the live studio. It does feel a little bit weird, but we'll make it work for the moment. So that's what the problem is. Okay. Question number 15 on the question sheet. Should councils be funding and organising community events?
I think a lot of these things are nice to have, but I don't want to put up people's rates if there's any way to possibly avoid it. So I think it's important to work out what the priorities should be with the community, in consultation with the community. Say, this is our list of priorities, this is our budget. If they don't match, either the priorities have to get shorter or the budget has to get longer. But that has to be decided in consultation with people, because that's people's decision to make. They're going to have to pay for these things. If they want to have priorities that are nice to haves, that will cost everybody money. And I'm not necessarily convinced that people want to pay for that. So we would have to ask the community what they are prepared to pay for. They would definitely be nice to have, but the question of money is important too.
And also, what would you do in this situation of when you have, say, central government providing you grants for it that have been specifically allocated for community funding? What would you do in that situation?
Well, and if the money's been allocated by government for a specific purpose, then I don't imagine one has a choice.
Okay.
So yes, I mean, if there's funding allocated that doesn't have to come from the rate base, then by all means.
Okay. Ura, what box number would you like? 12. Okay, question number 11 on the question sheet. And no, latest screen you put on there doesn't want to do it, Ray. What will you bring that is different from the current leadership?
I'll bring a bicultural, multicultural lens to current leadership as mayor. I bring also two diverse experiences in work as a policy analyst and also as an educator of over 30 years experience I've mentioned. I think also too, because I live in Porirua and I've been raised in Porirua, I bring a lot of years of experience of the voices of the vulnerable in Porirua I'm quite aware of, as well as those in other areas of the community, Camborne, Whitby, Papakowhai. I bring also 2 years of experience of working in roles in which the importance of looking at co-governance and also partnerships are essential. And I think I bring all of that experience and that lens to the position.
Okay, next up, Tapu, what box number?
I'll have number 21.
Number 21. You managed to get any result at all, or are we just going to go to the default background? Okay. No, you don't have that. No. Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. That works. Yeah. Okay. So it's question number 25 on the question sheet. How will you provide for our community to get around in a low carbon, healthy, and low cost means that will enable our city to halve our transport emissions by 2030?
One of my policies, Sam, is on-demand public transport, and that means more bus services more often. Porirua isn't a big fan of buses. You just need to look around at the school drop-offs and school pickups, that there are more parents picking up their kids now, and that's creating more of the carbon emissions. And we need to have more school buses available for all our school children to go to school and to get home safely. So I believe having an on-demand bus services, and we also need to match the pay for our bus drivers. They are essential workers, and I believe they're very important to our community. We would be without our nurses, our bus drivers, and I believe they should be paid more. I'd love to look at reviewing the pay of our bus drivers. My uncle was a bus driver himself, and he accepted the fact that it was a hard job with low pay. And if I'm elected as mayor, I'm going to change that, and that's not going to happen under my watch. And I want to make sure that we're investing in our essential services like bus drivers and getting more buses available more often.
So you've got a plan to work with regional council to bring on-demand bus service like what Tawa's got to Porirua.
Absolutely.
And
I looked at the Tawa model, and I'd love to bring that here to Porirua. We're basically neighbours. I don't understand why it would be impossible to have that here in Porirua as well.
And would you make it 24/7?
Look, we'll need to make sure that we've got the capacity first before I promise the 24 hours. I would love to have 24 hours because we have shift workers in Porirua. I'd love to have 24 hours, yes.
Oh, perfect. No, that's what we like to hear. And we got a few of those 24-hour workers back in Newtown as well. So we know the feeling. Nicole, what box number? Right. Okay, and no, still not working. Question number 12 on the question sheet. Glad I printed these off. How do you propose to foster a more positive public impression of more active modes of transport such as cycling? That might also mean getting kids to ride bikes still.
Well, I think just making these things as visible as possible. I definitely support as much in the way of cycling and walking as possible. We don't necessarily need to drive everywhere. I completely agree with the idea of bringing in more bus services and things like that. But I think it's difficult to increase the profile of these things unless you can get everybody absolutely doing it. You could have cycle days and things like that. You could have an event where children are competing and things like that on bikes. But it's difficult to know exactly how one would do that other than maybe doing it oneself.
Number 13, please. I think it's essential for the mayor to actually have competencies in Te Reo Māori. They don't need to be totally fluent, but a degree of competency in working co-governance with Ngāti Toa. I think also to knowledge of the community and a shared understanding and knowledge with key stakeholders in the community. They need to have governance experience at a senior level to be able to liaise, talk, discuss with diverse community groups and also across government with central government as well too. I think also too that a person in the mayoral position needs to be a person who's in touch with community, who actually lives in the community, who actually walks the streets of the community and has that day-to-day experience of what life is like in the community of Porirua. I believe also too that the person who actually upholds that role is a person like myself, who's a strong leader, who has diverse networks, who has a wealth of experience and knowledge, both in governance and also to in real life experiences. Someone who's been to primary school as I have here at Caddons Creek Primary School, been to Porirua College, been to Teachers College, graduated with postgraduate qualifications, who comes from a strong family, who've lived here for over 60 years in the community. And I look out in the audience now and I see people that I went to primary school with, and we have a shared understanding and knowledge actually of what Porirua was like, say, 10, 20 years ago. I think also a person who has a passion for the area because Porirua is part of them just as they are part of Porirua. Why? Your question was? I wanted to step up and do this position as well as what I bring to the role. I think the other questions that I've answered have actually I've articulated that. I bring that wealth of experience, but I think the other thing that I bring to this role, which is quite unique, is that I have diverse family affiliations. So I've got different world views. I have an uncle on this side and in the Māori side, the Samoan side, Cook Island Māori side, and also in the European world as well too. So I whakapapa to many places. So I'm, as I mentioned before, a person who can actually walk in many worlds. And that's something unique that I bring to this role, with knowledge of te reo as well. Kia ora.
Want to ask, Joyce Prankard,
Oh, yes,
my grandmother.
yes, yes.
So I didn't know that you might have been one of her students.
Yes. I know because I've taught in Porirua, but I also attended Porirua College, and I just wanted to acknowledge your grandparents as well too, and all of the teachers who have taught in this place here. This whare we're in here, this hall. I remember back in the day when we used to have assemblies here. The structure of Porirua College has changed, but many families have continued to come to the community again and again, and your parents would have been,
Grandparents.
no, your parents are products of people
Yeah.
who spent a lot of time here, and you're also affiliated to the place as well too. And so there's so many networks and connections to the place. So I just thank the teachers I've had in the past who've made a difference in my life, and Porirua College too, and the great work they're doing here for the youth in Porirua, which is something else also too. I bring a lens to the position where I can see the changes and innovations that have happened since I was attending college, and they're quite exciting. Just came from an event, Partners in Porirua event, where they had a lot of the youth who were there rotating around tables. Rather than us speaking like this, they were rotating around all the different councillors, all the candidates who were running, and they were actually having conversations. And I think that's the exciting thing that I can bring to the role as well too. The ability to be able to dialogue with a number of diverse groups in all ages. Kia ora.
Not a problem. Tapu, what box number?
10's looking good, thank you.
No problem. You're not also a Porirua College student for a chance?
I am an ex-Porirua College, and I'm also the 2015 Miss PC Porirua College pageant winner. As you can tell, I actually was against Aredna, who is a local diva here in Porirua College, and I ended up winning against her, and I love her, of course. But that's something I'll always remember back as an ex Porirua College student.
Well, I can certainly say my grandma was long retired by the time you probably were here, considering my life. I've only never known my grandparents to be retired, whereas my cousin John knows them as working grandparents as school principals. So interesting the difference goes through there. Now we've got question number 4 on the question sheet. What are your plans for flood mitigation and resilience if you're elected, particularly in Plimerton?
Look, flooding is a problem that's happening in Plimerton and all over Porirua, and it's not going to stop happening unless we do something about it now. And when I'm elected mayor, I will be the actions person, and I will be at the grassroots where these things are happening. We need a mayor that's going to be right there and then to see exactly what is happening, and not sitting behind a desk and reading these reports. You need to be on the ground level and making sure that things are getting done. And the things I believe that needs to get done is involving the community, getting their ideas, engaging with youth, and see what their ideas are on how to mitigate the flooding situations. I actually believe in creating training pathways for youth, local job seekers and local residents that want to learn about mitigating the flooding situation. We've seen families' cars being flooded where the flooding is happening, and that's something that needs to be fixed, because how can people get to work when their car is damaged? So I think locals will know where all the hotspots are, and the council needs to be there and talking to these residents to make sure they can find ways to stop the flooding. I think also, with the training pathways, we can teach people how to unplug the drains. Things can get done faster. We need solutions to happen now.
And I certainly hope you got your hard hat ready and your shovel ready to sit there and start off. Next up, Nicole, what box number?
70.
Okay, question number 3 on the question sheets. What are your thoughts on the public libraries in Porirua, and do you have any plans around them?
The short answer is no, I do not. So I very much appreciate the existence of libraries. I think they're an absolutely essential public service. I think we already have a reasonable number of libraries here. Building a new one would be a nice to have. I wouldn't want to put that on the rate base. The one thing I would say is I think it was a tremendous shame that the library practiced discrimination during the COVID era, because a lot of people were excluded from that facility, and I think that was fundamentally wrong.
How many libraries do we have in Porirua? Just so I ask. I mean, I personally don't know. So
I think 5.
yeah,
5
so
major ones.
yeah, no,
And
that
all the suburbs, 14 suburbs would have
5.
would be-
Oh, that's interesting to know. As I say, I like to walk out of here learning something new tonight. And this show, I've learnt about libraries. One of the Porirua ones, I learned about the number of culverts going into the Porirua Harbour at 55. Yeah. Yep. Yes. Very good regional council candidates worked that one out. Ura, what box number?
Number 2, if it hasn't been taken, please.
No, it hasn't. Okay. Question number 16 on the question sheet. How will you personally role model climate change, such as cycling to work every day or eating a plant-based diet, etc.?
I'll start with a plant-based diet. My family do know that I'm fastidious about ensuring what products and what ingredients are actually in items that we purchase off the shelf. And I've done a lot of research around this myself too. And not very many trained doctors know to actually explore and investigate the extent of benzoate in anything. And of course we have, and I'll just share a bit of my knowledge so you know I've done research around this, because I myself have intolerances and allergies. And because of this, I like to know exactly what products go into my food. And so I also have a scientific and a business bent to myself, an analytical mind, hence my policy training. So I quite like a plant-based diet. I eat a lot of silver beet. I wish I could grow more of it, but I eat silver beet practically every day. And I have a very limited amount of meat. And I come from a Pacifica Māori background, that when we have our huis or our whanos, when we have our food on the table, I will ensure that I have the food there for myself too. But you'll find me going around getting the plant-based food. And my family, who are 7-day Adventist, of course, they have plant-based food too, and I enjoy some of their recipes as well too. So I think on the kai side of things, I also enjoy going into the moana, but not as much now because of the pollution. When I was growing up, we used to go getting watercress. We eat a lot of kai inua, whenua. And of course now that is actually really concern for us. So when we move on to the other side of physical activity, I'm actually quite active. And I was just having a conversation to someone at the other event I was at, Partners in Porirua, about cycling. I'm really quite keen to get into cycling. Haven't done a lot of it recently. I do a lot of walking. I'm well known for walking around Aotea Lagoon, but I would probably be out there doing it too, role modeling it, as well as I do with my students. Being an educator, of course, one of the main roles of our job is to actually role model a lot of the learning to our students. So that's second nature for me. Kia ora.
Okay. Tapu, what box number?
Thanks, Sam. I'll have 5.
5. You get dodged the question. So what replacement box would you like? What replacement box? Because we want to get an answer out of you.
So I can get a replacement box.
Yes.
So choose a number.
Yes.
Okay, 18.
18. Did you not get one at the only Photo Award? Try to remember. Yeah. The smaller shows, it tends to become a little bit more common. So question number 6 on the question sheet. There'll be a Māori ward councillor. How do you see Porirua City Council achieving true co-governance with Māori?
I'm really excited about the Porirua ward, and I do want Caleb to win because he is endorsed by Ngāti Toa. I've got close relationships with Ngāti Toa through Helmut Modlik, who's the rangatira of the Ngāti Toa iwi. I'm really excited with the work that they've done to pave way for Māori, and I honestly believe that a win for Māori is a win for the Pacifica community too. And it's something that should have happened a long time ago, and I'm really excited to work if I'm successful and am elected as your mayor. I'm really excited to work with the mana whenua to come up with initiatives that work for both Māori and the entire community of Porirua.
And I think you need to tell Caleb to work out a date with Kylie so we can have a replacement show for the Porirua Ward show that has unfortunately been cancelled for tomorrow, but we'd rather move that to the word called postponed. So if we can sort out a remote option at some point, feel free to twist his arm remotely. Okay, Nicole, what box number? Number 30. Okay, question number 20 on the question sheet. Do you support more housing in Porirua? And if so, how and where would you see this achieved?
On the whole, no, because the housing bubble is bursting. So we have one of the biggest housing bubbles actually in the entire world. Auckland is the 4th least affordable city in the world. Wellington is not far behind. Porirua is not far behind. So what happens when a housing bubble bursts? So as you grow into a housing bubble, housing is in short supply. Everybody wants to build more houses. As soon as the housing bubble bursts, the market goes illiquid. Over time, people consolidate and move in with each other. There ends up being a whole lot of extra houses that act as a sea anchor on the market. And what they do is bulldoze the surplus supply. So if you continue building houses into a housing bubble, eventually you end up with excess housing that then they just bulldoze, and it's a complete waste of resources. So having said that, there is an argument for a certain amount of increased density in the center. I wouldn't increase density in the suburban areas because I think this is just going to annoy people enormously. But having increased density in the center, I think makes some kind of sense. Because if you do that, what you're doing is making the provision of infrastructure, transport, and things like that very much simpler. Because if you just build suburban sprawl all over the place, which is very much what has been done, you will lock in an enormous dependency on liquid fuels, for instance, on transport fuels. So you will increase the cost of transport. Having said that, we have 100% import dependency for liquid fuels in this country. We are also on the verge of another financial accident. When you can't get letters of credit, which you don't get during a financial accident, boats don't come. We are going to have a big problem when it comes to energy. So when it comes to climate change, we might make our Kyoto target several years too late, because if we don't have any energy, then we're not going to be producing emissions. So I would like to see less suburban sprawl. There's obviously quite a lot already, but if you can not at least add to that, then you're not adding to the problem of building in a structural dependence on something that may or may not even be available in the future.
Thank you. Okay, Ura, what box number?
Number 5.
Yes.
Taken.
Oh,
Number
no, I
5,
think it
please.
has.
It has. Then number 8, please.
No problem. Okay, question number 18 on the question sheet. Wellington City Council has committed to normalising Te Reo Māori. Would you commit to doing the same for Porirua City?
I would. I think it's really an easy question for me. I think there are a lot of cognitive benefits as an educator that we know of. If you speak more than one language, it actually assists and accelerates your capacity to learn in other areas such as maths, reading. I think there are other parts of the world also too have been doing this for hundreds of years. Other parts of Europe, by the time you get to secondary school, you know 5 or 6 languages. I think there's enough evidence and research, and I know this as a researcher myself, that we have unfortunately been shortchanged in the New Zealand education system. We have been given the opportunity of learning only one language. So the learning of Te Reo Māori actually gives us an advantage to not only accelerate our own capacity, our brain power to learn, but also too it enables us to be able to make those connections with mana whenua, with the indigenous people of Aotearoa, of Aotearoa. And I think it's a journey for people. We all start at different points along that journey. So the expectation is a personal one and the goal is a personal one. And I think also too, we have the first time 3 different wards, Onipoto, Porirua, and we have Ngāti Toa endorsing their people to stand, to represent in co-governance relationships with Porirua City Council, and that's really exciting. I think it's awesome that we've got Kylie too, one of the first Māori women to stand in the Porirua ward as well. And I'd just like to send out a big shout out to you, Kylie, out there. I appreciate what you're doing for all of the women here in Porirua as well too. You're stepping up for us all. And we say in my profession, what's good for Māori is good for all. What's good for Māori women is good for all women. What's good for all women is good for all of us, all men, all whānau. I think also too in relation to Te Reo Māori, if we're going to make Porirua future-proof, then we're going to make it future-proof with the reo. If we get it right with Te Reo Māori, we're going to get it right with many languages, because what we're going to encourage is a love and appreciation for the diversity that exists in Porirua. Kia ora.
Thanks, Sam. I can see number 6.
What's your immediate actionable plan for upgrading, decaying, and failing infrastructure such as sewage, water, and stabilisation of hillsides for critical works and non-critical projects?
That's a hot topic right now, Sam, and it's clearly our pipes. Our pipes are old. They're as old as our houses, and they're breaking left, right, and centre. And we're seeing it all over the news, and when it needs to be fixed now, we need a mayor like myself that can take action immediately and address our aging pipe issue. The way I would address this big problem is training pathways for our youth, our local job seekers, and our local residents. I actually would like to create partnerships with local suppliers. I think we need to be manufacturing our own pipes, so that if they break down anywhere, we can source them immediately and fix the problem within a week, within days, and not waiting for supply to arrive from overseas or South Islands. So getting local supplies, learning how to manufacture our own pipes, and also teaching our young people and our job seekers how to lay pipes in the ground. The work is definitely there. The demand to learn to put the pipes in the ground is there. We just need the people to come and learn how to lay these pipes and fix these immediately.
Thank you. And it sounds like Todd Motors in pipe making might be coming back to Porirua. Yeah. My mum's Mitsubishi Mirage was one of the last cars that went through the Porirua production line as a New Zealand-made, New Zealand new car, and back in the mid-90s. Yeah. Nicole, what box number? I think that's where I also did part of my practical test when I did my class 2, which ironically was done by local educator Steve Wickens. Oh, well, it was his firm, Steve Wickens. Yes. Well, my Uncle Richard, Dad's brother, because I have two Uncle Richards, and they both went to Tawa College. Yeah. Went to college with Steve and Richard went to college together, and then Richard later taught not Richard, Steve later taught at Porirua College when Grandma was second in charge. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we've got question number 14 on the question sheet. What are you going to do to ensure young people's voices are heard in action to keep our city vibrant and growing?
I would absolutely invite young people to come and consult. I would hold regular times when I would invite them specifically to come and talk to me, because I do think their voice is absolutely critical. And young people often do feel intimidated. They don't necessarily feel that they can join in the conversations around a table like the council table. I think some kind of youth council would be useful as well, to actually have a group of people. And that would go with teaching the kids civics as well, to let them stage a local election, to let them elect a council that can sort of shadow the real council, for instance. And
And let
maybe
them
work
also
with
know
them.
how STV works, considering that's always a great one of trying to educate people how STV works. Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a hard break now to give our crew a bit of a time to have a bit of a break and give our candidates time to mingle with our audience. And we'll see you back in about 10 minutes for hard-hitting questions. Okay, and welcome back to It's in the Ballot. We've had definitely some very constructive conversations between audience, candidates, and crew. So now let's roll in for hard-hitting questions. So we'll just have a blank piece of work there. So hard-hitting questions are those questions that we try to get all candidates to sit there and answer throughout It's in the Ballot, and we go around there. So the best way to describe it is, something that's a bit big in the area. Free waters, that's a big thing there. So that sort of stuff there. There's flooding in Champion Street. That's also a big issue for Porirua. So let's sit there and get on for hard-hitting question number one. So hard-hitting question number one is, what is your position on free waters reform and why have you came to that position? Let's start off with Tapu.
I'm in support of the Three Waters reform because simply we can't afford not to adopt it. To me, the Three Waters reform represents partnership with central government, which is something that's been missing between local government and central government. And I think this is a great way to start the relationship and getting the funding that we need, essential funding we need to fix our water and all our pipes. There are accountability issues and asset issues that need to be looked at. I do want to ensure that all ratepayers' voices are being heard at the table, and we need to ensure that we've got a council group that's strong and that can represent all the voices of all our ratepayers and residents.
Okay, next up, Nicole.
I oppose Three Waters because it's absolutely antithetical to local democracy. So what this will involve is all the water infrastructure being handed over to unaccountable boards. These are people you do not elect, and they are not accountable to you in any way. So they can set whatever cost they want for water. They can meter your water and set whatever cost per unit. They can privatize the system. And I can tell you, privatized water systems in other parts of the world have not gone well. So this is not a question of somebody else will pay for it. The ratepayers won't have to pay for it. Somebody else will pay for it, so it'll be free for us. No. The users are going to pay for this. And I can tell you they will pay through the nose if this system is privatized. So there will be no accountability. There will be ownership, but only nominal ownership. These are council assets. The ratepayers paid for these assets. They will have zero control over these assets. This is a central government power grab. I have a huge problem with this. So local government has been progressively disempowered over years and years. It's been basically taken over by central government. This means no local democracy. It means local democracy is a fiction, and that's not the way it should be. We need a voice in Porirua. We need to have our own voice to set our own priorities. Now, central government likes to download responsibility to lower levels of government. It's not just this country. All central governments do it in all countries. They download the responsibility without the funding to go with it. Then they can say, oh, local government doesn't seem to be doing this very well. We'll have to take it over. So they download it, they undermine it, and then they use that as an excuse to take it over. This needs to stop. We need to have genuine democracy at the local level. So I absolutely oppose Three Waters. What we need is to maintain the ownership and the control in the hands of the council. And central government needs to provide the proper funding for it. It cannot go on the rate base. The rate base simply is not large enough to cope with this. So it needs to be funded externally, and I would say it needs to be funded from central government properly, as it should have been all along. We would not be in this position if central government had provided the necessary funding all along. Now it's going to hurt, because now a huge amount of work needs to happen, and we are going to end up paying for it.
Okay, and Ura.
I think we need to be realistic about the fact that we are in a recession, and we've been in a recession for quite a long time. And it's not only a local problem with the three waters, with the wastewater, stormwater, and clear drinking water, it's a national problem. We've had other parts of New Zealand that have alerted us, Napier Hastings area, to the extent and dangers and risk for youth, for everybody in the community with the drinking water. Look, I'm just so grateful as Māori in Pacific. I remember the days where I used to go eeling behind Cannons Creek, go over to Pahatanui Inlet to look for Kaimoana and even Te Awarua Porirua. And for many generations, we've just watched those places get polluted. We've had stormwater overflow. And at the back end of all of this has been a lack of shared understanding on who should be making the decisions, what sort of treatment should be occurring to ensure that we get the best quality water. And of course, at the end of the day, it's the money. We're in Porirua, we're a part of a community with diverse skills and talents, that we can pull on those skills and talents and those voices around the table to help us with this new opportunity for partnership with central government. I'm on about diverse voices, people ensuring their voices are represented, and also too about building partnerships. We need the money. We can't fix our pipes by ourselves. We can't get the infrastructure in place. So this is what's been identified at the national level, not only for us, but for many other communities. So I applaud the opportunity to work in partnership with central government, and the opportunity as mayor to work with other parts of the community to get their perspective, their lens on how we can implement this to benefit all in Porirua. Kia ora.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll head over to hard-hitting question number 2. Can you please share your thoughts on the COVID-19 vaccination, whether you have any affiliations with Voices for Freedom, Freedom Rights Coalition, or any other organisation involved in the occupation? I've also had this repeatedly been asked in the stream chat. So, yes, we've got there. We're up to that stage now. We can do it. And Nicole, you're up first.
I did 10 hours of lectures for Voices for Freedom, not about COVID or vaccines or mandates, but about international finance and energy, which are my fields. So I did one on finance, one on energy, one on what you can do about all this at the individual and family level, another on what you can do about this at the community level, and then an hour and a half on the role of local government. So anyone who wants to know what I think about just about everything could always go and watch those. I staked my colors to the mast pretty clearly for that. So yes, I have done lectures for Voices for Freedom. They don't have a really membership. It's not an organization like a political party. They don't impose an agenda on anyone. They don't make anyone sign anything saying that they will follow certain policies or anything like that. I'm a truly independent candidate. Nobody is in a position to impose an agenda of any kind on me at all. I would say I absolutely oppose vaccine mandates. If you want to take a vaccine, by all means do. If you don't, you should never be forced, because this is the bedrock of medical ethics. Violate bodily autonomy and you lose human rights. I will never accept that. You must have a choice. Where there is risk, there must be choice. Absolutely always. Otherwise, you violate the Privacy Act, the Nuremberg Code, the Bill of Rights. Do we not care about the rule of law in this country? I do. I'm a lawyer, so I care very much about the rule of law, and I care about medical ethics. Mandates violate both of those things, and I would never support them under any circumstances.
Thank you. Next up, Tapu.
Kaitiakitanga is about protecting people, and with the mandates, I did get myself vaccinated because I care about my children and I care about my elderly family. I do believe it does come down to personal choice. And my personal choice was to get vaccinated, and it was to keep everyone in my circle and in the community as safe as possible. So my stance is to encourage people to go out and get vaccinated. I am not affiliated with Voices of Freedom.
Okay, and next up, Ura.
First, I'm not affiliated with Voices of Freedom. I'm just going to say a big thank you to Jacinda Ardern. If you're out there listening, thank you for leading our country. You brought together 5 million right in the midst of a global pandemic, and we got through it. We're still getting through it now. I got vaccinated, and I intend to continue to be vaccinated based upon evidence. And I'm a researcher and an analyst, and I don't do anything lightly. And my family know that. People who know me know that. And I'm quite strong when I am convinced that the evidence proves that, yes, this will work to protect you and your family and your whānau. And it does. I also do think that personal choice, of course, that's been mentioned, at the end of the day is the foundation of a democratic society. And I think as Kiwis, people of Porirua, we are fighters. If anything hits us, we're pretty tough. We'll get in there and we will ensure that we stick together as a community to get through this. I think being an analyst and a researcher and an educator, the evidence is pointing to the benefits of vaccination, but it's also to something which has hit the rest of the world internationally. And I think also too with the World Health Organization informing government, informing us also too who are interested in looping into many of their links and networks. It's a proven fact that the vaccinations have actually assisted many of us to stay alive. I think also too we need to continue to be informed about the different viruses and the strands that are coming and hitting the country, and to be mindful also too with all of the different perspectives coming through, that the decisions that have been made at the central government level, are they actually relevant for us here in Porirua? So it's a changing environment every day, but the threat of death and the threat of COVID is still within our community. So we need to be informed, and we need to be able to unite as a community to get through this. Kia ora. Thank you.
Okay, and now let's get ready for hard-hitting question number 3. There is a section of Champion Street which consistently floods in heavy rain. The current council solution was to post a sign saying the flood risk area. What steps will you do to take to actually solve this problem and stop the flooding and in any other areas with similar problems? Let's start off with Ura.
Look, I think we just need a change. We need to flip the whole governance at the moment with the City Council. We need to get new voices in there around the table. This problem at Champion Street is ongoing. It's been going for years. Why? Because we've got the wrong lens on it. What do we need to do? We need to do a review immediately. And we need to look at partnerships and the people that it affects and get them in to talk about what happens to them when these flooding situations happen. We need a change. We need transparency. We need people in there who are being affected to say, this works, this doesn't work. We need to do this immediately because climate change is a real issue for us. And also at the same time as well too, if we're going to future-proof Porirua, we need to look after the young generation. With all of this flooding that occurs, most of the houses along Champion Street are Housing New Zealand houses, for goodness sake. They're not warm and they're not dry. Our children can't get to school. Our families are in damp homes. And we need to review the housing too with Housing New Zealand homes as well to ensure that they are actually going to be warm and dry when all of these climatic things start hitting parts of Porirua. Look, when Porirua was planned 60 odd plus years ago, our population was small. We're 60,000 plus people now. We've grown. The infrastructure needs to change. Why hasn't it changed? It hasn't changed because we've got the wrong governance. So I say vote for Ura, vote for me, and you're going to get that change. It might be slow to begin with, but it's a change and it's not the status quo. Kia ora.
Okay, next up, Nicole.
Well, in the case of Champion Street, there are some quite steep slopes around there. What you need to do when you have too much water coming down slopes too quickly, you need to slow it down. What I would do is I would apply permaculture principles. So I would actually put swales on contour along those hillsides. Because what you do when you do that, you slow the water down so that it has a chance to seep into the hillside rather than just sheeting down. So if you take an engineering approach to water management, you tend to have long, straight, concrete lined channels that carry water away as quickly as possible. That's not really the best way to do it. You need to work with the environment. So working with the biology will allow you to build biomass along the edges of, they're called swales. So you build a flat space on contour with a raised area, you grow biomass into that raised area, and you do the same thing all the way down. So it's like terracing, but it allows the water to slow down, seep into the ground, and not come down in an enormous flood. So something like that would be a good idea for Champion Street. Some of the other areas, like say Plemmerton, for instance, I live in Plemmerton, and our house doesn't flood, but other houses down the road do. I think what you need there is stormwater catchment. So again, you need to slow the water down, but you need to have somewhere that's low enough where the water can actually gather. And there is a large field area in Plemmerton. So I think you could definitely do something. That is the area that floods the most. You could definitely create stormwater catchment there. And that, because that is the area that is most prone to flooding, I think that would be the best solution there. But it really depends on the location as to how you would prevent flooding. So you have to look at the natural environment and say, can I keyline plow this? Can I put in swales? Can I put in stormwater catchment? And one of the things I think is really important is to separate stormwater from black water. So we have lots of problems with the stormwater system not being adequate because it doesn't have the capacity to deal with the kind of water that's coming through it. And then it floods the black water system, and that's when you get sewage in the harbor. So we really need to have a good look at that stormwater catchment system because it is badly under-engineered.
Would a similar example to that would be how they fixed the Porirua Bay with the slippers just as you leave out on the right. I do remember it being a straight cliff like that, and now suddenly it's...
Well, they've terraced it, but they haven't really put in swales. So with a swale, you're digging a trench on contour, specifically so the water won't run down because there's no down, it's on the contour. And then you put a line of earth on the outside of the swale and you plant trees in there. You can also plant vetiver grass, for instance. Vetiver grass has really, really deep roots. So if you plant that into a hillside, it will hold the hillside together better than almost anything else. And when you have swales, you are building biomass on the edge of the swale all the way down. So that gives you the capacity to absorb the water on its way down. This is why it doesn't sheet down and just end up absolutely flooding everything. So work with nature instead of against it, and you do a lot better.
I like the practical approach you're suggesting as a solution. That's definitely what we definitely need. Tapu.
If we're serious about any of the issues that are happening in Porirua, you need to elect me, Tapu Elia, as your future mayor. The reason you should elect me as mayor of Porirua is because I'm an actions person. I'm not the best speaker in all of the world, but I'm definitely an actions person. When I see a need, including like our flooding, it's going to continuously happen unless someone takes action. And right now, our current mayor isn't doing that. And because she doesn't have the people skills to drive the change to make that happen. So I've got the people skills. I know how to talk to anyone from the builders and the engineers that are required to fix the flooding situation. My suggestion is we would detour the flooding water into the river that runs along the family park. That's got enough capacity to take the extra flooding. Also, we need to be educating our community what happens if we're not flushing the right things down. through our toilets and through our waterways, because it can cause blockage. And when it causes blockage and there's downpour, it is going to create more flooding. So educating our households, and educating our youth, our job seekers and local residents on how to deplug the flooding that is happening. So education, detouring the water, and obviously electing me, Tapu Elia, as Mayor of Porirua, someone that can take action and deliver and make sure that we are coming up with solutions that benefit the entire community.
Thank you. Okay, now for the mayoral races we have Honey in question number 4. However, makes sense for the mayoralty race. It's a shame Porirua only has 3 wards, because it's a little bit different compared to, say, the Kapiti Coast or Lower Hutt. In the case of Lower Hutt, they've got 6, and in the case of the Kapiti Coast, they've got 4 wards plus district at large. It's a bit of a tongue twister. But the question is, choose one candidate staying each ward that you'd like your voters to vote for in order to help build your team as mayor. So let's start off with Nicole.
So in my ward, I think I would go for David Christensen, because he has a lot of international business experience. So he's likely to understand things like housing bubble and liquidity crunch and issues like that are going to be absolutely vital for over the next term for the next council. So I think that sort of experience would be very, very valuable.
And what about for Onipoto ward?
I'm less familiar with the candidates for Onipoto ward because I haven't been competing with them. So I haven't had a chance to hear very many of them speak.
And if I asked you about Porirua ward, you'd probably have the same response.
Well, the one person who was running for Porirua ward stood up and said, why does it matter if anyone has any degrees? Because it just means they can sit in a classroom for longer than anybody else. And I tend to think, actually, it's pretty useful to study things, to have a chance to actually learn a lot and to learn to think rigorously and produce an argument off the top of your head in writing. I think these things are important. So he wouldn't have got my vote after saying that. Not that I can vote for him anyway, but.
No, but that's interesting. Tapu.
Porirua, I think you're going to make smart choices by electing me as the first Polynesian mayor of Porirua, Tapu Elia. I would highly recommend Caleb for the Porirua ward. I would look at my favourites in Onipoto at the moment, David Turner, because he's got the commercial experience. And I highly rate Murray for being young. He brings up a good point that 40% of Porirua's population is aged under 25, and you can't represent people in the 25 age range if you're not 25 yourself. So we need real life experience, and I think Murray can bring that with him. In the Pauta Hanoi ward, I am looking at Josh Trillin. I really admire his tenacity with the environment, and I think he can bring some really beautiful changes to Porirua City. And I'd love to work with all of these candidates. I think all of the candidates are amazing, but those are my main favourites. And please vote one Tapu as mayor of Porirua.
Okay, Ura, who would you recommend from the 3 different wards?
Look, as an educator of 30 years experience, that question actually to me is one that I probably wouldn't even want to answer if I was having to select students in my class to represent a particular activity. And I think, in this sort of process, you've got to be honest. And it's kind of dirty business politics. Let's face it. Everybody knows that. It's not just a movie, it's a fact. So, we've got 3 mayoral candidates here. They're all excellent. You've got a great mayor there at the moment. We differ on our policies. We differ on our lens and what we can do to change and make our Porirua future-proof. For me, I'd vote for myself. And as you can see, I just bring a unique lens. There has never been anybody in history who is Samoan, Māori, New Zealand, Cook Island Māori, Scottish, went to Cannis Creek Primary School, Porirua College, got postgraduate degrees, can talk to people who may not have been to university, who has those affiliations, those networks, speaks other languages. If you don't vote for me, you will probably find it very difficult to find another person like me to lead this community. So I'm looking for a team and people. I don't even know the other candidates that well. We don't really know each other. I would want to, when I'm mayor, I think I would have to, as we do in our occupations, learn to build relationships with each other. What I will say is this question was asked me out at Whitby. Anita Baker stood and she said, my expectations of people in my team coming on board would be for them to read their papers before meetings to ensure that you are updated, do your homework, come to the meetings prepared. She mentioned a lot of excellent things, which of course anybody would want of a team of people coming together to make and influence decisions. The one thing that I said, and I think that's what I would expect and look for at all of the candidates who are running in each of the wards, what is their commitment to the Treaty of Waitangi, which is really asked a question. How much te reo Māori have they got? And how much of that do they want to learn? And also, what experience have they got in living in Porirua? And then the last one I would want to know is, what do they think of me? Because that's the reality. I want a team of people who like me, who believe in me, and who can work with me. And, you know, when you go around on these campaigns, you get a gist of the people who actually like you and the people who don't, just as you know the people who are going to vote for you and aren't going to vote for you. So I think relationships are really important. So it's a good question you ask because it brings out a lot of the issues in campaigns that are not talked about. There are a lot of young people who are thinking, oh, I couldn't do that job. Of course you could do that job. Because if people like me who are running for mayor can talk so honestly like this to you, and you know this reality too, it'd be like going for class captain, but at another level. So I would expect people who are coming into the Porirua community to be able to relate to diverse communities. But I don't know the other candidates well, except for what's on their brochures. So I couldn't really answer that specifically. But everybody knows from what I've actually said at various meetings that I'm a strong Indigenous woman for mana whenua, who is Māori, who is of the Cook Islands, is of Ngāti Toa, is Samoan, and is of Porirua with diverse range of experiences. So of course I'm going to be voting for Caleb. Of course I'd be voting for Kylie. Of course I'd be voting for myself. Of course I'd be voting for Tapu. Of course I'd be voting for Mike. I don't even know, actually, I'm going to get it. Mike Duncan, because he's trying. He's making an effort. So is Anita Baker. So are many of the councillors actually on our current council. So my answer, I think, is just basically vote for Ura, Mayor of Porirua, councillor for the Onupoto ward. Ka kite.
Okay, thank you. Now we have we've got time for one audience question, which I've been going through there. Can we get you up here so I can give you the microphone so we can get the people at home to sit there and be able to hear what it is?
True. Okay, my daughter sent several questions that are really pertinent, and I'd like to say thank you because things like standing on the Treaty of Waitangi and things like that, and climate change, you have already answered. So it's good that you are hearing what people in Porirua want to hear, as well as important things like Champion Street, Omapere Street, where it floods. But first of all, where do you stand on amalgamation of councils and whether Porirua should be part of a super city? If you think that's a good thing, how do you think Porirua's unique qualities could be protected and heard?
Who would like to kick it off first? Okay.
I oppose amalgamation because it weakens local democracy. So you end up with these very, very large areas that don't necessarily have the same interests. And then it weakens the voice of the people in the specific parts of it. So I think we really need to maintain local democracy, keep it as local as we possibly can, so that you have a voice, so that things can be accountable. The larger the political institution, the less transparent, the less accountable it is to the people who are supposed to vote for it. So I oppose anything that forces scaling up. The Three Waters does that, amalgamation does that. I think we need to keep democracy as local as we possibly can.
Ura, how would you like to?
I think there's enough evidence internationally and nationally to show the pros and cons of both sides. What I'm proposing here is innovative ways at looking at leadership and co-governance here in Porirua. So I think what we are looking at also too is an economic model that it's going to actually ensure that our rates are not going to escalate, that we're going to be able to have clean water, hence the Three Waters approach by central government. I think there are possibilities, but I think there's always the proof in the pudding. I think that I'm open to change. I'm open to innovative ways that we can work to ensure the economic burdens of families in Porirua are not going to increase. Our rates are atrocious. Someone said to me the other day, when you get in there, for goodness sake, do something about our rates. And I intend to do so, not to have them increase. Look to other opportunities, possibilities to ensure economically Porirua is going to get through this period of time, which is a hard time for all of us. So I think also too, we need to be realistic. Some of the decisions that are going to be made are going to be hard ones. We can't think of us as being in isolation from the rest of the North Island or New Zealand. There is an economic trend occurring nationally and internationally. We need to be aware of that. I think what's really important also too is to get those voices around the table and to look at the model of co-governance that has been initiated with the current council and Ngāti Toa, because that in itself is going straight through to the Wellington Regional Council as well too. So some of this is already happening, yet we are just starting to get hold of it. And I think that it's important to keep up to date with the trends, open to possibilities, keep our democracy in place through allowing these conversations to happen, and to have the different village concepts strong and continuing through, even to the extent where we look at these different villages as being representative on our council. And then from that approach, come to a point, I hope, where we can make a decision as a collective group. Because it's not just my decision. I'm not the sole person who's making the decision. It's a collective consultative process, and it's one that has to be done collectively. I cannot do that alone. We can't. Kia ora.
Okay, and Tapu.
Porirua, you need a mayor that listens to the people. We don't have that right now, and I want to serve you, Porirua, as the first Polynesian mayor. We need someone that's going to put people first, not profits. I'm going to be that person if you elect me as the mayor of Porirua. I do believe in amalgamation if it means putting people first, if it means ratepayers can afford to send their kids to school and feed their children. I would love to serve Porirua at least one term before we go into amalgamation. I only favour amalgamation because I know it's going to benefit our ratepayers, and what's good for the people is what's good for me, and that's the decision that I would make if it came to it.
Thank you very much. Now, we are 2 minutes away before we hit overtime. So can we please get 1 minute closing statements? Let's start off with Nicole. Why should the voters of Porirua vote for you for their number one preference?
Well, I'm running for mayor because I see a lot of things on the horizon, clouds on the horizon, things that are going to end up happening over the next few years, particularly in finance and energy. So we're coming to the end of a 40-year financial bubble. So this has meant a huge expansion of credit and debt. We're getting to the point where that debt is no longer repayable. So there's going to be a lot of default around the world. This leads to a liquidity crunch, credit crunch, like 2008, but more so. And at the same time, we're going to be experiencing energy issues, not just here, globally. There will be energy issues. Globally, there will be food issues because during the era of COVID, supply chains started to collapse. When you start to collapse supply chains, you risk cascading system failure. And unfortunately, that's where we're going. So we're going to have a hell of a lot to deal with over the next few years. And because I have been warning about this for a very long time and explaining to people what you do about it in times like this, I think I want to put my time where my mouth is. I've been lecturing on this for years and years and years, so anticipating the end
We
game
need to start
and what that
wrapping
was
up.
going to lead to. So I would like to lead us through that time.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Tapu.
Porirua, make the right choice and choose me, Tapu Elia, as your future mayor. And I'm tell you why. My first policy will be addressing rates. I want a 6% average so that we're not compromising on our essential services like our libraries. I want to cut spending across the council, and that includes all the consultants and the lawyers. I want to cut salaries, including our CEO. And I want to also cross-train our staff to create more efficiency. I've got the business acumen and I can see where we can make changes to save money for our ratepayers. Policy 2, I want to suspend paid parking for 5 years. We need to ensure visitors want to come to Porirua and visit our beautiful city and see what we have to offer. Our local businesses are struggling because of this paid parking, and we need to suspend it for 5 years. Policy 3, I want to fix the potholes, walkways and cycleways to encourage more people to use public transport. We want to establish training pathways for our youth, for our local residents and job seekers. And by training our local people, we're keeping the money local and we're keeping the money in our families' pockets. Policy 4, I want to fix the pipes. Again, establish training pathways, manufacture our own pipes, work with local suppliers, keeping the money local. Policy 5, emergency housing. I want to use containership homes, and a third will be going towards emergency housing, a third towards affordable homes, and a third to social housing. So I want to build, get at least 800 containership homes available to families so that they aren't being disenfranchised and families can stay in Porirua. Policy 6, I want to revoke the Tutahi Bay consent for the treatment plant. We want to stop the polluting of our beautiful pearl of Porirua, which is Tutahi Bay. I want to install sensors for live monitoring of the water quality so the information is available for everyone to see. And policy 7, I want to create more on-demand buses and pay up drivers more. And policy 8, I want a council that will support the legs that it stands on, which is our community groups and our emergency services. Thank you.
Okay, next up, Ura. Why should voters give you? Why should voters give you their number one vote?
Kia ora ana koutou katoa tō te aroa nui tō tātou atua. Ki tō tātou iti tangata, kuki aireni e kuni i Porirua, tō tātou iti tangata Tongarewa, tō tātou iti tangata Nukuroa. E nā roa te metaki rāru nui ki a koutou, kātoa tō e te au tangata Māori i kuni i Porirua. Te aka iti, e te aka iki au, i te anganga kuni, i te mayor, te councillor, o te Unipoto ward. I'm of diverse ethnicities. I bring a unique lens to the position. I'm a former researcher, policy analyst, lecturer in education and business, community leader, teacher. I bring a breadth of leadership skills, qualifications, and international experience. Raised in Porirua, also lived in diverse communities nationally and internationally. I'll work towards uplifting mana whenua because I am mana whenua and because I have that unique lens on what it means to be Māori. I support the environment, climate change, and the flooding down at Champion Street, those things, the environment and community that aren't right. I will support diverse languages in the community, Te reo Māori, we have other community languages which we want to ensure are representative, our Arabic community language, also to our Chinese community that have been here for many, many years and contributed a lot to the community. Historical places, arts and the culture, family, and also to our children and youth. I'm a strong leader. I'll ask the hard questions and help the community with issues around mental health, specifically youth suicide, multi-generational trauma, warm, dry, available housing, high rates, safer roads, drinking water, wastewater, and also the whole issue of the overflow of stormwater in the Tiro Bay area. I don't know why we haven't thought about it before and putting down a rahui, ensuring in many of these places that are polluted that nobody is actually living there or around there. My strategy for achieving this is focusing on people, partnerships, and progress. So vote for Ura, for Mayor, and Councillor of the Onopoto Ward.
Thank
Me
you.
taki rā nui nui, whawhatai tele lava.
Thank you so much. And thank you to our candidates for appearing here tonight. I do have to say we did break from our tradition of leaving an empty seat for the incumbents that didn't turn up because we were, fingers crossed, hoping Anita Baker would turn up, but we have not. Obviously, that was not successful. But hey, no harm in trying. And thank you to our audience for being here. It was definitely more than I thought because we do know there was a few event clashes that with this evening. And thank you to Stacey, Ray, and Eddie remotely for making this show work tonight. As I say, it's not just me. It's definitely a team to sit there and go forward. Now, just for those who don't know, our Porirua Māori Ward show that was planned for tomorrow at Porirua East School has been cancelled. Both Caleb and Kylie are unable to make it, so we thought it was not worth wasting your time, the viewers, and the audience of turning up to 2 empty chairs. So we are trying to reschedule that. I believe some of our candidates may be able to twist their arms here tonight to see if we can get a show to replace it with. So tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, we're going to be repeating the Hutt City Council mayoral debate at 7 p.m. So you can sit there and watch again, and for those in there can have a bit of an idea of what's happening. Also at 12 p.m. tomorrow, we've got the Waikanae Ward for the Kapiti Coast District Council, and on Friday at 12 o'clock, we will have the Wainuiomata Ward for the Hutt City Council in our series Watch Again, which is getting ready for the voting papers. Some people do tend to like that, and the great part is we're broadcasting without actually really, apart from doing a bit of work, but a little bit of editing beforehand to make my computer sit there and scream for 2 hours while rendering it. So that's what's happened there. If you've got any questions you'd like to sit there and submit to the show, we have an online question link form. We do have for... Yeah, any show next week, just because, we'll be, yes, every other show has gone out. So Otaki Ward for Kapiti Coast District Council, that's on Monday. Tuesdays, the Northern Takapu Northern Ward for Wellington City Council. Wednesdays, the Lower Hutt constituency for the Greater Wellington Regional Council. Thursdays, Paikakariki Raumedi Ward for Kapiti Coast District Council. Fridays, the Northern Ward for Hutt City Council. And for Sunday, which will be for there, we have the Patanui Ward show for the Porirua City Council. The 2nd of October. Yep, so... no, you might have a different set because we might have a few more put in, but you may see some of the same questions in there. But hopefully we have some fresher ones in there as well, because you never know what could happen the next 2 weeks. If you are a bit not keen on doing it online, we do have a toll-free number, 0508 ballot, and you can leave a voicemail message on there of what your question is. Now remember, the rules are, if it's in the ballot, it must be able to be directed at any candidate, because what happens if you try to direct a question at a candidate and the wrong person picks the box? Well, they're going to end pretty nicely. So that's one of our rules here with It's in the Ballot. They must be directed to all candidates. So, and for the show on Friday this week, because you won't be seeing us tomorrow. Thanks, Stacey, for sitting there and reminding me. It is the Upper Hutt constituency for the Greater Wellington Regional Council. Ros versus Steve. So you can join us at Awaken Church to sit there and see who should best represent Upper Hutt voters for the Greater Wellington Regional Council. So thank you to everyone here, and we'll see you live back on Friday, and the show will be back on tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Have a good night.